Holler, holler. We have some special guests tonight. We have Andrew and Audrey Earl, who invited me on their vacation, which makes them awesome member missionaries. And we're going to go behind the scenes at some stuff that took place in Palmyra and what caused them to invite a gay man to join their private vacation. So this is super cool. So let me just, they've not used to EARL. Let me see if I can pull them up here and I'll send them an invite. Don't worry about it. And we have some great stuff for you tonight. So fasten your seatbelts and take your vitamins. Andrew, how are you?
Hey, Dennis. Good. How's it going?
It's awesome. It's awesome. Now, where's Audrey?
She's coming. She's taking care of Hudson, our new
She's
baby
taking
right now.
care of Hudson. That's great. So do you want to tell everybody about, well, we'll wait till Audrey gets here. So we will. So this is your first time going live?
It is, yeah.
It
so
is.
Lucky that we get to do it with you.
Yes. So in the upper right-hand corner, you will see that there is a screen that shows you the number of people. So right now we have 14 on. Holler. And we love interaction. We love to hear those little hearts go by. If you have questions for us, this is the time for you to ask. So, well, there's something really special that you and Audrey gave me for a Christmas gift. And I actually brought that tonight.
Oh, you're going to start with that? Great.
It's called Just Dennis. And do you want to tell what inspired that as a Christmas gift?
Yeah. We thought it'd be really neat and just something like a resource that you could have and use, because we know that you have a network of people that you always call when you need help and support, and we've been lucky to be a part of that network. Yeah. But we thought, sometimes people aren't available, or if you can't reach them, or if you're in need, immediate need of something or some inspiration, you could have this book to do that. And so after coming out to Connecticut for your endowment and being there and meeting all your ward members and such, we went around and contacted all these different people who kind of played a role in helping you get started in the church, and asked all of them to write you advice and testimonies and share their thoughts about you and your journey. And we compiled all those messages in this book with their photos, so that you can have it and look back on it anytime you need.
And you even hunted down my first mission president Miller, which that just blew me away when I opened this up.
Yeah, we got missionaries, we got friends, we've got the sister missionaries we're going to probably talk about tonight. We've got
Sister Gomez from the Philippines.
Yeah, a bunch of people, family members.
And you had your parents and all of your siblings write something, and you had Derek and Shelby Hall, who are all mentioned in my book. That I have to say, when the editors were coming through this, your name was mentioned like 100 and something times. It was always Andrew and Audrey this, Andrew and Audrey that. Well, there's an interesting story about your mom was shopping at Deseret Books in Orem, and she went up to my friends Kit and Allison just before she was going to serve her mission in Sweden. And she goes, "Excuse me, are you Kit and Allison?" "Yes, I'm Andrew's mom. I recognize you from Instagram." I was like, you just can't make up how small this world is.
It's a small world, and even smaller within the church.
And that's my mission president that he hunted down, and that's Kit and Stephen Duro. So one of these days I'm going to read these stories out loud to you, because it's really special that he found all these photos of when the missionaries prayed for a walk-in. So let's go into this. And I had all of your family sign it, but you know who I didn't have sign, which I'm shocked, is Jenna. Never signed it. And Audrey's parents never signed it, and I stayed with them for a couple of months when I was in Utah doing devotionals and stuff. And I'm like, what's up with this? So I got to haul this back to the planet of Utah to get more autographs and Just Dennis. So that is pretty cool. So we've had some questions come in, but one of the questions that I've always wondered is, what caused you to invite? Oh, and your sister Amy says, better come visit Dennis soon. Everybody,
everybody can sign up.
everybody can sign it. I know. I need to come back. It's well, you gotta, Amy, you gotta request a Stake Center talk for me because my flights are paid for, and I'm gonna once the church takes over my booking, I'm gonna have no say. So, but what everybody wants to know is what caused a straight couple, basically a newlywed. Hey, Audrey.
That's
Hey,
Audrey.
Hudson.
Hi, sorry, I'm here.
Oh, don't. Hey, family is more important. Think about the family proclamation. It's precious. So, what caused a straight couple to invite a gay man who you saw, Andrew, my past, and I was a hot mess.
Might be an understatement.
It might be just an understatement. I mean, you would see me post things on Facebook, as I call it, and you would probably just get chills like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? What is he doing? And it was all for attention. So what caused you, knowing my past, to invite me to your vacation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it really goes back to how we even met each other. Because, I mean, in the beginning, we didn't even meet face to face for a while.
Yeah. You came up to me in Orlando, September 2014, and I was with Janet DeLeo, and you said, excuse me, are you Janet DeLeo?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I had worked at the company we were part of beginning in 2011, and I worked in the call center and customer service for a couple of years. I'm sure we spoke on the phone a few times during it.
Yeah. Because I was trying to go diamond the first month that I was in the company. So I was traveling all over the West Coast building my team.
But by 2014, I was actually promoted out of the call center and promoted into a position where I worked specifically with the company leadership. So like Janet DeLeo, your sponsor into the company. And so at that point, my job responsibility was not to assist and help people like a normal customer service agent. And so at that point, going forward, Dennis, you were not supposed to call me for help because I was helping the top leadership, kind of in a different role.
Exactly.
And so while maybe we talked a few times while I was in the call center, like I really don't recall any specific conversations or anything like that until I had been promoted into this leadership position. And Janet called me with you three-wayed in, and I'm going, Janet, you're not supposed to call me with all these other people. Like
I wasn't up at that rank yet. So
he's supposed to call the customer service.
Yeah.
And so I remember that was probably, those were some of our earliest conversations. And then, you know, I created a company Facebook page, and so we became friends on Facebook, right?
Yep.
And
you had a fake account.
Yeah. So we were friends on Facebook. So I started to see your life and what you were sharing about and posting about. But then we met in person in the fall of 2014. And then I know at a few other events, we met in face-to-face a couple times beyond that as well.
Yeah.
And so let's fast forward to 2015. Audrey and I were dating. And right at the beginning of 2016 in January, we got engaged.
And you never posted personal stuff on your fake Andrew Earl Facebook page.
I didn't post much, but I did end up posting that we got engaged. And so I'm sitting in my office one day, and this package shows up for me out of nowhere. And the label on it says Dennis Schleicher, and I'm like, what is Dennis sending me? Like, we barely know each other. So we've got it right here.
Really?
You sent us this frame with a little I do with our engagement picture on it.
Yes. And I made that. I went to, there's a funny story about that. I went and bought 2 wedding bands at Michael's to glue in there, to super glue in there. And I realized that they were 2 male rings. And I said, oh, this ain't right. And I had to go back and find one with a diamond, you know, for a husband and wife. And I said, oh, heavens, this would only happen to me. So, yeah, so that's
So out of the blue, we get this picture frame gift, like engagement gift from you, and I bring it home. I bring it back from work, and I show Audrey, and I was like, "Wow, like this dentist guy, like that was really nice."
The gay guy sends us an engagement gift.
An engagement gift.
That's weird that we're like, out of all the people from this company, the gay guy sends us engagement
a wedding gift.
Well, so
And,
then I send you a wedding gift.
and nobody else was sending us gifts like this. You were the only one, so we're like, "Wow, that was cool." So let's jump forward again a little bit. And I was coming out to another meeting with you, and you had said to me, "Hey, will you bring me one of your wedding invitations?" You were trying to, like, behind my back get one.
I
copy
was
of one for yet another gift that I had no idea you were doing. And so then I show up, give you a couple of our wedding invitations, and then at the next event, like 6 months later, you show up and give me this.
And you were so impressed by that because I told you a story behind it. You recorded a video.
I did.
And you probably should send that video to me so I can share it. Because that was when the Osmonds came, and I was at the leadership dinner that night in Orlando, and you said, you played kind of dumb, and you said, I don't want to forget this, so can I record you with my phone, my iPhone?
Well, Audrey wasn't there, so I wanted Audrey to hear the explanation behind it.
And what was the explanation I gave?
Well, I mean, so Dennis had our wedding invitation welded into stained glass. I mean, talk about a unique gift. And so he explained to us that with the work of welding this in here, it's what did you say? It's sealed in here.
It symbolized that your front and back of your frame is welded together by a Christian welder who does stained glass for churches, and that could be stained glass from any church in the country, in the world, and it could be even Rome. And he would, or I don't think he does temples, but and he would take and break those pieces and put them in and weld and seal your wedding together forever in eternity. And
you had no idea that actually meant something to us.
Nope. No idea.
You had no clue.
No, I was clueless. So that was God. And that was the first step. So then so
after that, you started asking questions about the church to Derek and Shelby Hall.
Yes.
And and Derek was the CEO of the company. And so I spoke with them, and they knew that we had talked and that we were friends through work. And so then we started talking on and off. It wasn't even very often, but you'd send me a Facebook message here and there asking a question. You'd ask a question over the phone once in a while. And, it kind of just went from there. But Audrey remembered that we were actually at Lake Powell with Derek and Shelby when you and I were Facebook messaging, and you were trying to figure out how to download and get in to the Gospel Library app to find the scriptures. And you were clueless. You had no idea.
It was so clueless. I could not figure out. It was only allowing me to download lessons, and I didn't get it. And I wanted to be chronological. And I had all these different lesson plans and teachers and seminary that taught, how to teach seminary. And I didn't know what seminary was and what's primary and what's this. And I was just clueless.
Well, so, I mean, look at where you are now 4 years later. Who can imagine that 4 or 5 years ago, you couldn't even get on the Gospel Library app?
Exactly. So what caused you to actually, to invite me to Palmyra?
Yeah, I promise we're going to let Audrey talk more. This was just all the background before Audrey even came in to meet you, right? So after you gave us these gifts, we were talking about the church a little bit through Facebook Messenger. We actually decided, I had been to New York on a trip, into Connecticut on a trip to work.
Hey, Bishop.
And Audrey had never been there before, and so we planned a trip that we were going to come to New York City, and because I wanted to take Audrey to New York.
And this was in March.
And it was in March of 2018. So we booked our trip, 2017. So we had our flights, we had our hotel, we had Broadway tickets, we had the whole trip planned, and we didn't have the time, we didn't have the money to go extend the trip to where we could do New York City and go to the church history sites up in Palmyra. And we thought about it, we really wanted to, but we just, in March of 17, it wasn't a possibility. So we booked everything. We were going to New York City for a few days. And right at the same time, our company merged with another company.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened like 2 days before the trip, right as we were about to leave. And things were crazy. And in my job, I was kind of a stabilitator for all of this that was going on, and working with all of the leadership of the field and helping them to, get through this change of merging companies. And so the new CEO actually approached me when he found out that the next day, Audrey and I was going on a trip for a few days and I was going to be gone. He approached me and asked me if we would be willing to consider canceling our trip because I was needed to help with the merge. So we talked about it, and we ended up deciding, okay, we're going to cancel the trip.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So 8 hours before our flight, we canceled the whole thing. We canceled it all and sold the Broadway tickets. And in the end, we were out $45. So it worked out really great for us, right? So we were really disappointed we didn't make it to New York. And so we were going, as soon as we get another opportunity, we're going to. And so soon, not much later, we were able to book another trip to New York City in July of 2017. And at that time, we had the time, and I had received a bonus from work that we were able to have that extra money that we needed. And so we added going to the church history sites in Palmyra into our schedule and extended the trip so that we could do that.
And my family loves pageants. And so Andrew wanted to take me to the Hilcomora pageant.
Hilcomora. So, but Audrey, were you nervous having me come along?
No, I was just like, because Andrew came up to me and goes, hey, Dennis has been asking questions, and I obviously knew who you were because we had talked. You were in and out of conversation.
Yeah, the wedding gifts or the engagement gifts.
Yeah, and so like I knew who you were, and even though I hadn't met you, and so Andrew was like, I had this random thought. Dennis lives out east, and so would you like to invite him to our vacation to go see the church history sites? And I was like, well, he's asking questions about the church, like, why not? Like, so I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I was just like, sure, like, that's fine with me. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, and we were both missionaries, and so we've been out. I was out for 2 years. She was out for 1.5 years teaching the gospel.
Both in Anaheim, which I'm excited to return there to do a multi-stake youth devotional in August.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And so we done the whole teaching the gospel as missionaries, but we thought, what a unique opportunity, somebody who's interested in the gospel and asking questions about the church. And honestly, we were looking at you going, yeah, he's asking questions, but this guy's never going to join the church. This guy's never going to get baptized.
And I thought the same thing.
We were like, Dennis is gay.
I was trying to find so many excuses to get out of that trip. You have no idea. And you even know, and I think I even offended you because you even know I put off at booking my hotel until the 11th hour. And the fact that they even had a room available, I was the last room they had.
Well, and not only that, in the beginning, I told Audrey, I was like, hey, if Dennis comes, I don't even want him at the same hotel as us.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
We have to keep a little bit of distance here because this is our vacation.
Yeah, this is our vacation.
Yeah, we're not here for work.
Exactly. But we didn't talk about work. We actually talked a lot about church history, and we talked a lot about the Church of Jesus Christ and what it was about. And I think that's when. So why don't you tell people when you started to notice the change?
Immediately.
It was pretty quick.
Because I used to talk differently, and you notice that I started to correct my verbiage?
Oh, yeah. I mean, today, we're doing this today because today is the 4-year anniversary of us actually meeting. And we met at the Priesthood Restoration site in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, right?
Now, had you and your wife never invited me on your vacation, I wouldn't be where I am today. It was 4 years ago today.
4 years today.
So we stole the book of, I stole the Book of Mormon out of anger. Then it's like because of you, and you made church history. Now, did you actually think, so one of the questions was, somebody asked, did you actually think I was going to go to church on Tuesday when we were at the hotel and you guys looked at LDS Finder and I said I would go? Did you actually think I would go, that I would actually walk through, that I would come?
So yeah, because I helped you find your church because Andrew was busy doing something.
And you were surprised it was a ward and not a branch.
I was like, oh, it's a ward out there, because I just knew the church is a bit smaller out east. But I thought you would go. Did I think you'd join the church? Maybe, but if you did join the church, it would take you at least a year. But I thought you would go.
I thought it would take 2 years minimum. 2 years.
2 years minimum, not 3 weeks.
No. And we're like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? But like, I thought you would go to church. I didn't really doubt that, just because we saw you in New York and how much you just lit up. And so I had confidence you'd go. I just didn't know you would jump in so quickly.
Yeah, we just thought you'd go check it out and it'd be like a one and done, or maybe
one and done.
You know,
so
we never expected it would continue. But I think one of the neat things is the things that Audrey was able to see in you, because she met you 4 years ago today for the very first time. We had met several times, so I already knew you. I knew how wild you were, how inappropriate you were. I mean, I'd see your Facebook and it was like, hide Dennis's stuff.
yeah, that's embarrassing. Embarrassing.
But Audrey met you for the first time on this trip in Pennsylvania at the Priesthood Restoration site, and that was her first impression of you.
Yeah. But like, you were like, when I met you, I didn't see anything like inappropriate. Like, I think Andrew kind of like warned me.
I think you were on your best behavior.
You were on your best behavior.
Well, so you know,
but like, you were just very welcoming and just very energetic. But like, it felt like I had known you it wasn't my first time meeting you, because you were just a very welcoming person.
What's interesting about that is GPS took me to train tracks and I sent you a selfie, and I was wearing a really skinny tank top, which is what I used to do with really short shorts, like Daisy Duke shorts. And something told me, go in my trunk and put on a dress t-shirt before we met. And that, to me, again, wasn't me. I don't know what caused that. It was the spirit. Said, hottest is modest. And it was hot and muggy that day. It was like 98% humidity. It was just incredible. And we were sticking. And then the forces of nature, when we were leaving the Pennsylvania to go to
well, that was the next thing I was going to say was, everybody who's read your book has read about all of the instances of the adversary trying to prevent you from progressing in the gospel, right?
Yes.
And I mean, all along the way, and even after being baptized. And I mean, it's unreal that it began even before. It began 4 years ago today.
Yeah.
As we were leaving the priesthood, as we were driving to the priesthood restoration site, I mean, it was a torrential downpour.
We were leaving and the streets were flooded and they were closing the streets.
This notification on our phones, like, it's a monsoon. Like, you
need
to leave.
Flood warning in the area. Like, if you don't get out now, you're not getting out.
We had to go.
We gotta go. We gotta go. And it's like,
we were on a very tight schedule to try and fit things in for the day, because we only had really half the day today, and then we had the full day tomorrow. But that's all we had, and that's all the time we had with you. So we had to get moving. So we booked it out of there with the roads flooding around us. I don't know, they've got flares out in the road warning you to stay out of the big puddles on the side. I mean, it was crazy.
It was.
So we made it out of there. We made it up, and our next stop was the Whitmer farm, right?
Yeah. And, you know, this wouldn't be believable if it wasn't for all of your diaries. Because I remember you said Dennis grabbed his Book of Mormon every time. Like, if you'd leave it in the car, he'd say, hold on, Andrew, I need the keys. I got to go get my Book of Mormon. And I carried it like a security blanket. And I would have not had remembered that had it wasn't for your diaries.
But yeah, you did. From the moment we met you, you carried that Book of Mormon in your hand the entire trip.
Yeah.
Everywhere we went.
So we do have some more questions, which is kind of cool. Mountain Mom, who's a good friend of mine, she says, I found out last night, it's Mountain Mom. So fun to get to meet a couple who invited there on vacation. And then someone else, Marie, says, you can definitely feel the spirit. And we have a lot of hearts, which we love the hearts going by. We have my friend Granny Fly. She's a missionary grandma, and her son is serving in the Boston Mandarin speaking Connecticut mission. He's in New Haven right now. She says, your whole story with the Earls and meeting them, investigating the church is pure divine. I mean, it is. It's purely divine. Now, maybe Audrey and Dennis, Mountain Mom says, maybe Audrey and Dennis knew themselves in the spirit world. And then we have A.ST says, hey, Dennis, I sent you a DM. I will check. I am about 500 or 600 behind, and I just cleaned up the other day, last night. So, but we had some other questions, you guys, from Dr. Christy Kane. She's the leading pornography expert with the church. And she consults with the church. She said, did you actually think you would go to church? We answered that. We have another friend, Kalleeann. What prompted you to take the next step to invite Dennis? Now you answered that, but she said inviting can be scary and hard. Is there any advice that you can say to being scary and hard? Was it scary and hard for you?
I think it was a little scary. I mean, I don't know that it was necessarily scary. It almost felt a little uncomfortable just knowing who you were and kind of your background and your past and kind of the uncertainty of going, I don't know what Dennis is going to be like if we do this. And you know, and we don't want to like interrupt our trip. So, I mean, it was a little intimidating, but after Audrey and I talked about it and decided, we're going to invite him to come along, because what a cool chance to have somebody come and learn about the gospel in person for the first time, where it all started in the Sacred Grove and in Palmyra at the church sites. And so from that point on, we just made the decision, we're going to invite him. And so I remember the day you came to the office here in Utah, you pulled me aside and said, hey, I want to ask you a couple of questions about the church when we get a chance. And I said, yeah, great, let's talk about it. And we actually never got the chance that day. You remember that? We never did. But then I was kind of there. You were talking to lots of different people in the office, and I was kind of standing around waiting, going, okay, like, when do I jump in and like ask him? And I finally, right towards the end of the day, was able to pull you aside real quick and explain that we were going to New York and thought it would be a cool chance to answer a lot of your questions and asked you if you wanted to join us.
And he could say no. Like Andrew's like, can we invite him? I'm like, sure. And like, he could say no. Like, he's just because we invite him doesn't mean he's coming.
But I politely said yes. And then I'm thinking, holy stars, what have I done? How am I going to get out of this? So I tried to book all these events. And because Andrew would know, because he's a leader in the company, and he would know if I'm doing an event, so I couldn't lie. And do you believe they all panned out? Nobody wanted to have me do anything. So God wanted me there. And we have another... The three of us were meant, I really believe the three of us were meant to be in Palmyra 4 years ago today.
Like March was canceled for a reason. Like we were not supposed to go to New York in March. We were supposed to go in July.
And you also made LDS history, I believe. And I wrote about this in my book because I was insistent with my mission president, or our mission president, and my bishop and stake president. I said, I want to have Andrew, because he can't be here, to do the opening prayer from the pulpit in his ward in Provo. And they said yes. And you're like, so I did an itinerary. I had a 6-page itinerary for my baptism. Who does a 6-page itinerary for their baptism? I forgot about that. Like, at this time, pick up Derek and Shelby at the airport. Bring them to their B&B in Glastonbury. Do this, dinner, this, lunch, this. I mean, everything was ironed out. And I sent that to you. And Derek's looking at this, and he's going, what on earth is Dennis talking about? I'm in the High Council. We can't have, it has to be done in the chapel. We can't Skype the opening prayer. That just doesn't happen. So what happened, Andrew? You made LDS history before COVID, I think.
It was before COVID, yeah. well
You
before.
Skyped the opening prayer.
Yeah, we were able to say the opening prayer over Skype, and it was kind of funny. I've never seen a bit at a baptism where I literally carried from the chapel over into the font where I could watch you get baptized.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that cool?
That's
I
pretty
love
neat.
that. So
But,
let's talk.
well,
Sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's talk about my endowment. So I received first presidential approval, and that was actually a blessing, because if it would have happened the week we wanted it to happen, you were going to be starting school. And so you called me one Sunday night and you said, I had dinner with my sister Amy. And what did you tell me?
No. Well, you were doing your endowment and asked if I could come, and flights were just too expensive. It just wasn't going to happen. And so I told you I wasn't going to make it. Well, then that night at dinner, my sister Amy said, well, I've got some Sky Miles points, and if we use my Sky Miles, we can get you a ticket for such and such price. And it was significantly less expensive than what I could have bought it at.
And then my parents also gave us, I think, like $100.
Audrey's parents, gave us $100 towards it.
And
so
your parents also, your parents also gave me $100 for my temple clothes. So, yeah.
So I was able to then afford and buy a plane ticket to come out to Connecticut for your endowment because of my sister and Audrey's parents.
So again, God knew I needed an angel here, and you were my angel. And right the day after I picked you up, I went to go pick you up. We went to some football or soccer Hall of Fame or something. And I knew you wanted to go do it because Audrey wouldn't go, and I don't understand sports, and she doesn't understand sports. And what did I do? I ended up looking behind me, and I said, oh, there's a car behind me. And I slammed on the gas, and I did about $20,000 worth of damage to both our cars. And I was on the pavement in tears going, oh my gosh, my angel's here, and he's supposed to protect me. Apparently he doesn't protect me from other cars. And I just handed you the keys, and I said, here, you're driving. I can't do this. And I needed you. I needed you for
the rest of the trip. And then that was exciting. It was my first time driving into New York City. That was an adventure.
That is. So,
I think something that, you mentioned, and there's so many things to talk about that we kind of jumped over at, was seeing about your change once we were with you in Palmyra. And I think that's something worth talking about for a minute, because the first day, so 4 years ago today, we were in our separate cars because we were coming up north from New York City. You were coming from Connecticut. We met in the middle and then followed each other the rest of the way up to Palmyra. And so we didn't really talk so much on the drive that day. But once we got out of the rainstorm and up to Palmyra, the first place we went was the Sacred Grove. We wanted to get there before the end of the night, before it was dark, and so that was the first place we went. And Audrey and I, we were talking about it with each other on the way up. We're like, okay, here's our plan. We're going to take him into Sacred Grove. We're going to teach him the first missionary lesson of the Restoration. We're going to teach him about the first vision.
Oh, yeah, that's that. Yeah, apostasy.
And so we're going, okay, it's been a couple of years since Audrey was a missionary. It's been several since I was a missionary. We're refreshing, remembering. Audrey pulled up, preached my gospel on her phone. We're going, okay, we got to make sure we do a good job with this.
Yeah.
And for those of it, Dennis was doing this, but this was an example from the mission. It was this is an apostasy. So there's prophets, and then once an apostasy happens, those are the gaps between the fingers, and then this is the big apostasy in the Restoration right now. Brief explanation if that's what Dennis was doing. Anyways,
just going like this, yeah.
So we walk into the Sacred Grove, and we kind of wander in a little bit. We walk along the path. I mean, it was so quiet and peaceful that day as we walked in with you, and you were just you were looking around, and we already knew, we could tell already before we got into the Sacred Grove that you had already felt the Spirit. When we stopped at the Peter Whitmer farm, and chatted with the sister missionary there. She took us in. We watched a little
Sandy.
movie.
She's a senior sister missionary. Yep.
We watched this little video because we didn't have a ton of time. I mean, it was like a 5 to 10 minute video, and we'd seen it a dozen times, right? It was nothing new to us, but you'd never seen it before. 5-10 minutes, we stand up to leave. Dennis is in tears.
And I wasn't a crier until after I joined the church.
So I'd always known you as a crier.
Yeah. So we knew that you had already felt something before we got to the Sacred Grove. So we get into the Sacred Grove, we find a bench, and the place was empty. It was like the end of the day. It was getting close to dusk, and so the grove was empty. There was nobody else there.
No, there wasn't. Just mosquitoes. Lots of mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes, yep.
Yeah.
And so we found a bench. We went and sat down on the bench, and Audrey and I started talking about the church and talking about the restoration and Joseph Smith and everything leading into the first vision. And we were talking about it today. One of the funniest things about it, because as missionaries, and if any of you out there have been missionaries, you probably can relate, but it always
we have
seems
several
like,
missionaries on now.
great.
Yeah.
So you'll
understand
this.
Yeah. It seems like every single time you're teaching a lesson, and right as you're getting to like the best part.
Or like it's at least in my time when I was doing it my mission, every time we would teach the restoration, a dog would bark, the doorbell would ring, people would come over, the phone, emergency text, something would happen right when you were going to talk about how Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ came and appeared to Joseph Smith. At that key moment, something would happen.
Always something to try and interrupt that spirit and that moment of teaching the first vision. And so we'd been through that. We kind of expected it, but I didn't expect that it was going to be you trying to distract us.
I did not.
I'm not kidding. As we're trying to teach you the first lesson,
what did I want to take a picture?
Through the different steps. You know, we're teaching you about God and about Joseph Smith, and you're going, oh well, look at that flower over there.
Like a short lesson, but I think it took like an hour and a half.
Oh, it took an hour and a half to get through it. We were sitting on that bench because you couldn't focus. You were just like, we'd talk for 5 minutes and you would derail and go off on something else for 10. And then we'd bring it back and we'd keep going, and then you derail off another direction.
Well, we can blame it on him down there.
And so we finally got through the lesson. And
it's getting dark.
It's getting dark. So we finally got through it. And I mean, you were kind of just like, oh, that's nice.
And things are starting to there wasn't much time left for the historical sites to be open.
Yeah, but we kind of thought, we're going to teach him the first lesson in the Sacred Grove. It's going to be a super powerful experience. This is going to be amazing. And you were just like, okay, let's keep going.
That's nice. That's nice. Let's go see the next place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So because the historical sites are going to close, you're like, okay, we have to go see Joseph Smith's home and like his second home and whatever else is out there on the farm. And so we met some sister missionaries, a companionship, and I don't know what's companionship.
Sister Gomaris. She had just finished up a tour, and she was by herself leaving to go back to her companion. And we come up to her and we're like, hey, can you take us in before you close? And she's like, well, I'm not really supposed to because it's not my turn. But she's like, yeah, come on in.
And interesting story behind that I heard from her, because she's married now with a child in the Philippines, and she got sealed in the temple. But her companion reached out to me and said on Instagram that I am so embarrassed because I was so tired. I didn't want to take you guys around. She goes, so I told my companion, you just take them. And she goes, now look at what you've become. And she goes, and I could have had that moment to be with you, and I didn't because I told my companion I don't want to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I said, we will meet someday and we will do the missionary hugs. So that's really interesting. But that's when I felt it. That's
when you felt it, because we walked into the Smith family home and Sister Gomaris was showing us around, and
she did an excellent job.
Oh, she was so good. Like, someday it'd be really cool if you bring her on and have her share about the experience too. Like, wow, she was a powerful sister missionary.
She was
amazing.
And I didn't want to.
And it was neat because we just kind of we had been the missionaries. We just took a step back, and
you took photos of our backs when we were looking out the back door of Joseph Smith's house, and that's when one of you leaned over, and I think Andrew said to Audrey, I think he's actually getting this.
He's getting that because she took you out onto the back porch of the house, the back steps.
Open the door.
Like open the door, took you outside onto the back steps where you could just look out into the sacred grove. And she taught you again, just right after we had, she taught you again the restoration of the first vision. Yep, no interruptions, peaceful, quiet.
You mean I didn't go look at those beautiful flowers or those birds?
No, this time you were dead quiet.
I was focused.
You were focused.
That's
you were quiet. You were listening, and I think you were listening with more than just your ears. You were listening to the Spirit as well. And as she taught you the first vision, we felt the Spirit, and we felt the power of her teaching that through the Spirit. And you turn around and, again, you are crying.
Yeah.
All over again. And so we knew at that point, like, Dennis is feeling this.
Yeah. And so I had a revelation before we entered that home, because I could feel the persecution that all the pioneers has gone through and what Joseph Smith had gone through. And I really didn't even know who Joseph Smith was before that day, because I was just like, I never opened the stolen Book of Mormon that I stole, but I really felt it, and I almost didn't want to enter, and because it reminded me of all the persecution I went through being a victim and a minority of a hate crime. And I said, if anybody could relate or resonate, this feeling came over me and I got goosebumps, it would be members of the Church of Jesus Christ. And that is what I have felt being out there, is that all the love that I have. And I know all of your parents personally. We have each other's phones. Anybody that knows Judy, Audrey's mom, she's a stitch. She's a hoot. Her and I are like two peas in a pod. She's my brother. I'm her brother from another mother. And when I was staying out there, she goes to me one day, she goes, oh, that Dennis, I was telling my mom when I was visiting her, Dennis is so gay. He's as gay as they get, Mom. He's an authentic, homegrown gay. He was born gay. And I'm going, is she talking about me? She was. So, because she just said, you opened up this can of worms, and I can't get these can of worms back in the bottle now, because I always thought it was a choice. And now I realize you were born that way. And so for 65 years, I'm thinking, you chose this, and now I know it's not a choice. So that is really cool. This has been quite an enlightening night. I just want to see. So we have a comment from my friend.
More questions before we
the New York Unicorn. She posted that the church did a video. Somebody did a video on her. She passed out drunk on a freezing cold in upstate New York. And her friends found her, and she died. She literally died. And she had a vision from her dad. You can either come with me or you can go. It's like a 3-minute video. And she was a convert around the same time as myself, maybe a year before, in upstate New York. And she's just amazing. The New York Unicorn. We have LAK. Will you post this interview later? I will save it as if I can, because it may be too long. Mountain Mom says, you said yes and didn't back out. You are right. So I'm just going to try to find comments that are relevant, because there's so many here. And I just want to let each and every one of you know that you are loved, and that let's give Andrew and Audrey a huge shout out for being amazing member missionaries, because without them, I would not be where I am today. We have a woman, SP. Yeah, those hearts are showing them. They're loving it. That they are awesome member missionaries, and we all can lead like them and be member missionaries. We have SPA says, I served the Florida Jacksonville mission, October 1990 to 1992. Now that's when I would have slammed the door in your face if you would have came to my house. I'm serious, because that's how Andrew saw how bad I was, and he saw how the atonement has changed my life. We have Murray says, loving this, but got to get ready for Zoom. I totally get it, for sacrament. And so just lots of hearts. We have, my friend says, my husband said the sweetest thing last night. How could anybody not just love Dennis? You know, we love you. And I just think you guys are all amazing. So any closing thoughts, Andrew and Audrey? And everybody just keep those hearts coming because they love it. This is their first time live. I'm so grateful for you doing this.
We might have to do it again. I feel like there's so much we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, there is.
Well, I guess just like Andrew was talking about like your language and stuff. And one thing that I found interesting is because we went up to what is not
Well,
right.
it was
Niagara Falls.
the next day was the day we spent a lot of time together in the car as we drove 2 hours to Niagara Falls and back. And so, and that day you just rode in the car with us everywhere we went.
And so we were doing like really church history sites that day. We were doing a day trip to Niagara Falls, and you were just asking all these questions. And the thing that like was impressive was you weren't saying like, oh, do you guys drink alcohol? It was like, do we drink alcohol? Like you had changed your language. Like you were including yourself in the church already. Yeah. You weren't like, this was day 2, like not even day 2. Cause it was a half day the previous day. And you were saying like, do we do this? Do we do this? Do we not do that? Like you were totally including yourself in the language. And if you swore, you're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like you hardly swore, but every time like you did swear, like you would catch yourself. And so it was just amazing to see like how immediate like the change was. Like that, that's an example of how we
you
saw
recognized it quickly, and
when I got
we gave you an answer, you're like, oh, okay, that's what we do. All right.
Yeah. And so when I got home, I sent you a video, and I'm going to post that on Monday, or which I think is the day I did it. And I filmed at the Connecticut River, and it was me thanking you for changing my life. And I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart, because now you're going to get me to cry again. So thank you so much for being on tonight. And we have one last comment. Andrew, could you read it? Because my eyes are blurry.
Let's see. C.S. Lewis, this is Marion's daughter. C.S. Lewis said something like, shine not so others can see you, but see the Savior through you. You are all beautiful examples of this, sending love, light, and gratitude. Thanks for the comment.
So thank you so much for this. And we're just going to say sending love and light your way. And remember, God loves you. He made all of us. And we may not be perfect in our eyes, but we're perfect in his eyes. Love you guys.
And I think, it's great. You make, by sharing the gospel, you make new lifelong friends. You improve the lives of yourself, but you improve the lives of others. And I never imagined 4 years ago that you would be where you are today.
Thank you.
And it's been a complete blessing and really an honor for us to be lucky enough to have been a part of it.
Well, I'm proud to call you and your wife and your family. You're not just friends, you're family. And I mean that. So I love you guys, and welcome to your new home. And Hudson is adorable. I can't wait to meet him and hold him. And I'm baby friendly. And he's going to serve a mission someday, and maybe I'll do his own conference in his area. So, all right, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
Okay,
Thank
see
you.
ya. Bye.
Bye.